Alright, YouTube, I wanted to talk a little bit about these new wave of religious movements, these sort of Tao, interfaith movements like that. Various religious bodies, various individuals that essentially use the same morality of the Christian or Jewish or in some cases Islamic religion, but they try to spiff it up, modernize it a bit, make it more accepting, less bigoted. They take it and they transmogrify it into something that they hope is more palatable to people. And there's this one YouTuber in particular who caught my attention, who I am now talking about in specific, Brother Sean Bradley on YouTube, and there'll be a link to one of his videos in the description. And he's, I gather from what he says in his videos, a former Catholic, but he left Catholicism because Catholicism to him was very negative, very banal. It had that banal aspect to it of you are judged, you are sinful, you are a bad person, you must confess every little thing that you do to this man in a white robe. And of course what he's saying there is quite understandable. But there's a problem, and I think a problem that some people superficially overlook with these newer wave of religions. Essentially, they seek to take the old religions, the very banal, negative aspects of them, and they take the moral aspect of those religions, but they transform it, attempting it to make it something positive. For instance, this individual is talking about acceptance of gays. And that's all well and good. The problem is you've packaged up essentially the same Christian morality that led to the tyranny and darkness and negativity of that church in the first place, and you've repackaged it into something else, given it a different name, perhaps different rules, but you've essentially got the same seed of darkness, which could create the same monster over and over again. You've taken essentially a thorn plant, taken the seed from it, said this seed doesn't have thorns, planted it, and you're expecting to get something different as a result out of it. It doesn't work that way. You can rename the movements all you want, but they still contain that seed of despotism. I would note that even the Catholic Church, when it was first founded, was not a banal system. It was essentially an intellectual circle of individuals who were attempting to compile this material and institutionalize it across Rome to replace what they viewed as decadence and the problems with the Roman Empire. It was almost a reformist movement in many ways. They saw the pagan gods being worshipped, but they saw people doing it in terrible ways, cutting people down, raping people. There was prostitution everywhere, which you can argue all day whether it's good, bad, or neutral. And they saw this decadence, especially in the upper classes, and they said, how can we reform this? And of course, Constantine, anyone who actually believes that he saw the light of revelation and converted to a Christian then because he had some deep-seated moral obligation to do so because he actually felt he had seen Christ, you'd have to be crazy to believe that. He did it for political reasons, and that's fairly well established, that the Catholic faith, the largest single church on earth, was actually founded by a fraud who simply wanted to garner more control over the world's largest empire. But what Constantine did was essentially plant the seeds of ignorance that caused the Dark Ages. We saw 1,000 years of backwards regression, lack of civilization. We saw very few technological progressions being made during this period, partially as a result of the church's banal aspect. So here you have another reformist movement, like many others. You have the Wiccan movement. Wiccans take Judeo-Christian morality, some groups, not all of them. Some Wiccan groups take Judeo-Christian morality because they were raised Jews and Christians, mostly Christians. They were led to believe that the things which the Bible says are right, and the things which the Bible says are wrong, and they intermix it, of course, with Greco-Roman statism in many cases, but it's essentially the seed of Christianity and Christian morality. They then try to apply this moral view to a pagan form. And what you're left with is a bastardization. It's neither Christianity nor paganism. It's got a new name. It's a hybrid of both of them, and it doesn't work too well. Now, there are some Wiccan groups who don't do this. There are some Wiccan groups who have pagan morality, or who explicitly state, well, we're Christian white witches. Either way, again, you've still got that negative aspect to them. So I would ask this YouTuber, and many other YouTubers within groups which stress positivity, happiness, togetherness, friendship, acceptance of others, tolerance of those with differences of opinion, people who look different, act different, different skin color, whatever it may be. I would ask these individuals, what makes you believe that this movement you're a member of, that is starting out very positive, what makes you believe that that movement won't simply follow down the same path as Islam, which was started as a reform movement to rid that area of degenerate pagans, or Catholicism, which did the same thing for Rome, or even Judaism, which is essentially, if you want to really study it, a reform movement based loosely on Sumerian paganism. And you can see that these religions plagiarize off of one another, and they take often the worst aspects of these other religions that they're taking their material from, and they combine it into something negative. But then you have these newer movements, and they're saying, well, the way forward is positivity, we will achieve enlightenment, we will achieve world peace, happiness, whatever. And they're arguing against the very nature of man. And the very nature of man is this. Man is essentially peaceful, but there will always be a seed of war in him. Man will live at peace when possible. All humans, unless they're completely insane, 99% of the human race will remain peaceful until there's a reason for them, an excuse, and then they will slaughter one another. It's especially pronounced when you have authority figures, and that's what you see in any religion. Religion causes bloodshed, violence, and terror, not because there's anything particular wrong with their teachings in many cases, but because individuals that are in power, either within the religion or outside, political forces, business forces, whatever, can manipulate the teachings of that religion to excuse violence, or corruption, or, rape, genocide, whatever it may be. There are always individuals who will use those teachings to their own advantage and to the detriment often of others. That's the problem with organized religion. There is no such thing, nor will there ever be such a thing, as a pure, wholesome, peaceful, organized religion. It's not possible, because the very structure of human psychology disallows it from not being manipulated. You can't do that. You could write a 1,000,000-page disclaimer to your religious text, specifically detailing down to the last possibility everything which the book is saying to do and not to do, and everything which is acceptable and unacceptable. There will always be someone who will find a loophole in there and use it to their gain. That's why disorganized religion is actually the true nature of what is good in this world. One of those disorganized religions being lack thereof. The idea of simply saying, there will be no religion for me, I will do what I want, I'm harming nobody else in the process, and I will live my life, you will live yours. If you get in my way, I'll cut you down, otherwise we'll leave each other alone, we might even be friends. In this way, it's possible for a single individual to manipulate others. It's possible for an individual to be manipulative or cruel or heartless or be a rapist or, genocidal or whatever. But there's no longer an organizational structure for them to fall back on to use as an excuse to get others to do their work for them. A lack of religion on this planet, or specifically very small religious groups which don't care about converting others, religious groups that aren't open about being a religious group and in some cases honestly discourage others from joining, these things can't be manipulated very easily because you don't have a hierarchy that extends all the way up to a pope sitting in some golden throne somewhere looking out over hundreds of millions of individuals. how easy would it be for some idiot to become Pope and then use the Catholic Church to excuse all sorts of atrocities? We see with the eugenics movement. People don't honestly think about this. Hitler, of course, with Germany, millions of people died during the Holocaust. Not just soldiers in war, but civilians as well. Different racial groups, homosexuals, gypsies, Jews, whatever the case. Atheists died too. They were condemned. You can look at all these people. They were killed. Why? Because of eugenics. And because Hitler was a practicing Catholic. I've actually disagreed with some of my friends who are on similar occult or spiritual, metaphysical, what have you, paths as me, who claim that Hitler was an occultist. He may have dabbled in the occult. There's no question that at that time Christianity and Theosophy were intertwined. Of course, I've got a great deal of literature by Christians from the early 1900s up through the 40s that deal with occultism. But it was Christian occultism. It wasn't pagan. It included some aspects of paganism, but it wasn't pagan itself. It was Christian Theosophy. It was Christian. It was, in many cases, Catholic. In some cases, Protestant, of course, as well. They don't want to think or hear the following truth, that the eugenics movement was started in the United States with the blessing of all organized religions therein. It was started as a way to kill off the poor, the blacks, the gays, the atheists, the Native Americans. And it was used to great effect. Up through the 1970s, they were still sterilizing Native American populations in the United States. Very few people remember this. Unless you're studying anthropology in your college, you're probably not aware of this fact. The University of Vermont, my own university, was one of the main epicenters for the genocide against hundreds of thousands of Native Americans in the New England region. And people don't want to hear about this. They want to personify this one evil character of Hitler as this masterful black occultist, not realizing that in our own country the same thing was happening before Hitler even stopped making art and stopped starving half to death. It was happening in our own country on the same scale, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people being mutilated with surgery, castrated, chemically or physically. Cast out of the population. They had all sorts of drugs pumped into them. You see the eugenics movement with homosexuals, electroshock therapy, all sorts of supposed cures for their supposed illness. And this was done with the grace of God. It was done by the grace of Jesus fucking Christ himself. And Jesus Christ looked down out of the sky with a malevolent grin on his face and black clouds enshrouding him against the shadows, and he said, "Fuck you." And he said, "I'm happy that you're dying." That's the Jesus that you serve. And you see with any other religion, you see the same thing. What are the Arab peoples doing? The Muslims over there? There's nothing specific in Islamic literature that says Jews are terrible people, go kill them. Actually, it refers to them as people of the book and says, just coexist with them. They have the same basic idea, so just leave them alone. And yet they kill these Jews over in Israel. And what do the Jews do? There's certainly nothing in Jewish religious literature saying to kill Muslims, because Islam didn't even exist when Judaism was founded. Yet they slaughter them left and right, because it's organized religion in full swing. And because in some cases it's based on nationality. For instance, most Muslims are in the Middle East in the world, or Indonesia. There's some in India, quite a few in India, but let's say just the Middle East, the Middle Eastern Muslims. They're all from similar nationalities. They're Middle Eastern individuals. There are Muslims in the United States. Some of them are white, black, Asian, whatever. But these Islamic people over here, they look at it not only as a religious issue, but as an issue of race or ethnicity or nationality. And there are bigots in the United States, all these Christians saying, don't let any Mexicans in here, they're Catholic. But really all of your religions, these organized religions, are pure evil. They're a way for the rich, powerful, and corrupt to become richer, become more powerful, and corrupt themselves and other people, and get them to kill and fight and butcher one another. That's what organized religion is about. It's not about saving your soul. If you're going to church to get your soul saved, you're already going to hell, because you're already in hell. You've made the world itself hell through your own guilt, darkness, and easily deceived